Have you ever played a game so horrifyingly bad that you're certain it gave you brain damage, possibly future heart problems as well? Well, I now have. I'm actually at a loss for words as to what to say about Catwoman on the PS2, other than bloody hell who gave this disaster the green light. The film it's based on is undoubtedly a steaming pile of trash too, though I do have to admit it is a guilty pleasure of mine, not least because Halle Berry's portrayal of Catwoman is so gosh darn campy.
Overtime.
Admittedly, it's been a few years since I've seen it, and I'd have to watch it again to remind myself of the plot, or lack thereof. But what I did love about it is it's a film that lets you switch off and vegetate. Who cares how bad it is when you can watch Halle strut her stuff in sexy leather and get a good laugh out of that awful CGI? The tie-in game, however, has next to no charm, mainly because, unlike the film, I'm forced to pay attention instead of turn off my brain for 2 hours or so. Now, I knew going into this it was going to be horrible to play, given how often it appears on people's lists of the worst games of all time, but lordinell, I was not prepared for what this game threw at me. Weird controls, awful platforming that only works some of the time, a fixed camera that does everything in its power to impede your progress, character models that barely resemble their film counterparts, and some of the weakest voice acting I've heard in a good long while.
You're in for a whole world of hurt.
Ready for the fur to fly?
Yep, this is going to be a fun one to talk about. There was at least one thing done right about the game, however, the cat aspect of Catwoman. She'll climb up your curtains, she'll knock stuff off a nearby edge, she'll even destroy your property, just like a real feline companion.
Bloody things. I hate those bloody cats. The way they meow and they piss everywhere and their shit smells just bloody awful.
So, if you've watched my review a couple of weeks back on PS1's The Emperor's New Groove, you'll probably remember that Argonaut Games were the developers behind this catastrophe, and it was most likely one of the catalysts in the downfall of their company. Sorry, I'll stop now. Catwoman was published by EA and cursed the PS2, GameCube, Xbox, and PC, receiving mixed to negative reviews upon its release in the summer of 2004. There was a Game Boy Advance version that surprisingly fared better against critics than other versions, though it was developed by a separate company who I've never heard of, so there's that. Going into the title screen, and I will admit, the game did look promising. The only thing I didn't like was the strange sighing sound Catwoman made every time I clicked on an option.
You wanna play my game?
Not really, but if I don't, the fans will be mad. Now, before we launch into Crazy Cat Lady, I should briefly sum up the plot for those who haven't seen the film, which I wouldn't blame you for. Trust me, you'll be judged if you have seen it in this case. And spoilers if you do intend to watch it, you absolute nutter. So, this is Patience Phillips, a quiet and shy graphic designer who gets her life turned around when she finds out her Dare Beauty, the cosmetics company she works for, is secretly making an anti-aging cream with some rather nasty side effects. It will indeed reverse the effects of aging, and even make your skin as hard as marble, but if you stop using it, your face will basically disintegrate. Patience is caught overhearing this conversation between Dr. Slavicki and Laurel Hedare, the wife of company owner George Hedare, and tries to escape through a pipe, but is sealed inside by goons and washed out to sea. Lying dead on the shore, a mysterious cat, who we later find out is called Midnight, literally breathes new life into her, and she is revived as the titular heroine, Catwoman, with all the feline abilities that go with it. Cat-like reflexes, the ability to squeeze through tight spaces, and no doubt a sudden urge to crap in a giant litter box. The owner of Midnight explains that he is a messenger of Bast, an Egyptian goddess of many things, but most importantly cats, and more ironically cosmetics. Patience then goes on the prowl to find out who murdered her and why. And after many twists and turns, including frequent run-ins with love interest detective Tom Lone, and a few dead bodies here and there, she discovers that it was Laurel's doing all along, due to being let go as the face of her Dare Beauty because she was too old. A fight ensues, which ends with Laurel falling off a building, in the most hilarious way, might I add. And everyone lives happily ever after. Except the ones who died. The plot of the game more or less follows the films, but it does make some deviances here and there, such as removing the police station scene entirely, and a slight change in the circumstances of Laurel's death. Whereas in the film, she's so horrified by her disintegrating face that she forgets to grab Catwoman's hand, in the game she willingly falls to her death, as she can't bear to live with how hideous she has become. It's a small change, but it does award her some sympathy. I mean, she was let go as the face of her husband's company, she found out he was cheating on her with the younger model that replaced her, and she was terrified of becoming old. No wonder she couldn't see a point in living anymore. So now you know the plot of Catwoman, we can finally start up a new game. Doing so will give you your first glimpse at the graphics in the form of a cutscene. And you know what? It's not that bad. At least to begin with. They do get worse later on when you notice all the repeating objects, JPEG dancing people, and the T-posing goons, but initially the game didn't look too awful. Bear in mind as well, this was before I changed a couple of settings in my emulator. Later cutscenes looked much less pixelated after I did some fiddling. And at least the developers made their own cutscenes for the game. I'm so used to tie-ins cheaping out and using clips from their respective movies for promotion purposes that I was pleasantly surprised to see actual PS2 cutscenes in Catwoman. Unfortunately, the titular hero seems to be the only one who's fared on this graphics engine, as nobody besides PS2 Halle Berry actually looks like the actor that portrays their character. Detective Lone, played in the film by the handsome Benjamin Bratt, has apparently aged 25 years as he now sports a head of white hair. Laurel Hader, played by Sharon Stone, looks like she's taken her beauty product a bit too much and literally turned her face into marble, given how rarely her expression changes. And pretty much every goon you come across in this game looks like a potato with eyes. Actually, you know what they do remind me of? Sims 2 characters. Slap some Sims music on there and I bet you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. And if you thought the character models were bad, oh boy, wait until you hear the voice work.
That needs a closer look.
Don't try and run, lady.
I think I'll put you on the scrap pile.
Stop right there, lady. You're in for a whole world of hurt.
Believe it or not, the great Jennifer Hale does most of Catwoman's lines in this game. And if you don't know who Jennifer Hale is, let me give you some examples of her work. Female Commander Shepard from Mass Effect.
Are you naturally this bitchy or is it just me?
Ash from Overwatch.
Well, well. Now you got my attention.
Feckin' Thorn from Scooby-Doo and the Witch's Ghost. She's a legendary voice actress that's had hundreds of roles in film, television, games. You can tell I'm in love, can't you? And you know what? She's bloody wasted on Catwoman. I really do love Jennifer Hale and she does her absolute best to bring the part to life, but the combination of awful cheesy lines she's given to work with and the simple truth that she sounds nothing like Halle Berry makes the dialogue very awkward and cringy to listen to at times.
Ready for the fur to fly?
Can it wait for a bit? I'm in the middle of some calibrations.
It probably would have helped if Halle's lines from the film were kept out of the game entirely. For some reason, they decided to add both her lines in and new lines from Jennifer. So one minute you're hearing Halle in the menu options, the next you're quite clearly hearing Commander Shepard in normal gameplay.
You've got some choices to make.
I'll claw my way to the top.
I assume they included Halle's lines for marketing purposes, but had Jennifer done all the voice work herself, it probably wouldn't have been quite as jarring to listen to and I could have enjoyed it a teeny bit more. It probably would have also helped if they didn't get Jennifer to voice every female character in the game, excluding Sharon Stoneface of course. There was one point where Catwoman was up against a female sniper who, swear to God, I thought was genuinely a clone of her, given she had the exact same voice and dark skin.
She's approaching the perimeter. Lock and load.
Is this some weird Logan plot where someone's cloned PS2 Halle Berry and sent the younger model after her? Nope, this is just what happens when you get a very distinctive sounding voice actress to voice every female character in your game. Also, love, what is up with your neck? Maybe she failed at the platforming like I did and landed on her head. I'm not entirely sure who the other voice actors in the game were, as they're not listed at all in the near 10-minute long credits, but according to IMDb, not only did they get Hank Azaria on board to voice the thugs, but even Jeremy Renner for the voice of the cops. Seriously? What? Hank Azaria and Jeremy Hawkeye Renner. And you have them saying voice lines like this.
You're not on the list. No fancy dress.
What a waste of bloody talent! So our first port of call is the jewelry store. This is basically a tutorial level, with some combat, climbing, and kicking.
You need to be recycled.
Trust me, love, not even the recycling wants your game. Oh, you were talking about a bad guy. Oh, sorry. Let's take this opportunity to discuss the frankly baffling control scheme in this game. So you know the front-facing symbols on pretty much every controller in existence? In the Xbox's case, the A, B, Y, and X buttons. You know how they're universally used for actions such as jumping, attacking, grabbing things, blah blah blah? Well, Catwoman says you can shove your normal control scheme up your arse. R1 to jump. R1 to friggin' jump. Are you having a giraffe? Oh, but that's not all. You'll frequently have to combine R1 with L1 in order to do platforming maneuvers such as swinging on poles and climbing your way up grating, and sometimes you'll have to combine both of those with the right analog stick in some way, such as using the whip to grab hold of things. It sounds simple, I know, but this took me a hell of a lot of time to get used to, and I was still having issues wrapping my head around it even by the end of the game. Any section that required me to latch onto a grapple point with the right analog stick, swing with L1, unlatch with the right analog stick again but in the opposite direction, and quickly jump to a grating opposite with R1, broke me out into a fit of rage as I continuously plummeted to the ground, unable to get these accursed fingers of mine to work in the order they were supposed to. Combat was thankfully much simpler, but only because it consisted of spinning Catwoman's legs around non-stop until all the bad guys had disappeared off the screen. And once again, an odd control scheme. Want to kick a bad guy in the teeth? Want to do it with the front-facing buttons like you would on any normal game that involved combat? Well, tough titties. You're going to hold down L1 and wildly wiggle that right analog stick like you're trying to pleasure it. This brought about even more issues too. Holding down L1 is necessary to perform Catwoman's harder hitting attacks, but use so much as touch a wall while holding it and she'll scale up that bad boy and just kind of hang there, all while still being shot at or smacked on the arse. Honestly, what bright spark thought it was a good bloody idea to map the wall run and ability to perform attacks to the same button? The whip was a pain in the arse during combat too, though less so than accidentally running up a wall and sticking Catwoman's rear in some poor unfortunate guard's face. It does have its uses, such as disarming a goon, grabbing hold of items to throw, and even platforming itself. But again, somebody decided to map two different abilities to the same button. Not only does wiggling the right analog stick while holding L1 make Catwoman perform attacks, but not holding L1 will have her pull a whip out instead and give it a good flick. You can't stop the animation for this either, so you have to sit and watch as she swings a whip at nothing in particular, when all you really wanted to do was kick a potato in the spuds. Seriously, I don't know who came up with this control scheme, but I really hope they're somewhere safe where they can't hurt anybody, because they're clearly insane. If they can map the jump ability to R1, who knows what other demented shit they're capable of. I think by far, the most laughable thing about this game is how you dispatch enemies. See, there's no killing in Catwoman. Killing is very bad and wouldn't make this game suitable for children, even if we are playing as a woman dressed in BDSM and making provocative sounds. Nope. Instead of offing guys with a well-placed neck-breaking kick, we instead throw them into conveniently placed boxes, or maybe lockers, sometimes even down a garbage chute or off a particularly high ledge. Because as long as they survive, it isn't murder, even if they are left in a wheelchair for the rest of their lives. Sometimes I don't even need to go that far, and enemies will off themselves. Beat up a bad guy long enough, and they'll eventually cower in fear at the mere presence of Catwoman, sometimes doing the dirty work for you by diving through a window, or jumping into one of those conveniently placed boxes I mentioned earlier. Bosses are even worse and totally uninspired. There are 4 in total in the entire game, but each one plays out the exact same way. Get round the boss to perform a spam of kicks and try and knock them into something
for massive damage.
For some reason as well, every boss in this game is apparently a master of kung fu, because they will come at you with flying kicks, spins, the works. Kind of takes away the whole Catwoman being super flexible and skilled in combat if everyone else can do it too. So once you beat up the evil jewelry thieves, a cutscene will play showing Detective Lone, the old fart, preparing to fire upon the store with a bunch of officers. Because, you know, it's bad if I steal a couple $1,000s worth of diamonds, but by all means, Detective, fire away! Destroy the place if you have to, they've got insurance. Probably. It's here you'll be shown the first of many collectibles in the game. It's worth mentioning I didn't attempt to go for most of these, mainly because I have better things to do with my life than deliberately jumping off a building that took me 10 minutes to scale, just to collect some stupid item for a game I have no wish to see the end of, let alone 100%. I'm not exaggerating either, a lot of these collectibles are situated in awkward to reach places that require you to sacrifice all that painstaking climbing and vaulting you did in order to collect them. I mean, I wouldn't mind if collecting said item gave you a quicker path up to where you started, but no. You go straight back to the bottom and you hate yourself a little bit more for being that person who can't bear to leave a collectible behind. Speaking of going straight back to the bottom, my god, I hate the platforming in this game. The first section isn't too bad, and I dare say it was actually rather fun trying to evade the cops, all while bullets flew past my head from the pursuing helicopter. But all that enthusiasm quickly evaporated when I made it to the second scene. It's clear the developers were channeling inspiration from the Prince of Persia Sands of Time, but there was something they forgot to do when they were making Catwoman. Oh, what was it again? Oh yeah, made sure it worked! I don't think I've ever experienced platforming quite this horrible before. Now, when it wants to work, it feels absolutely amazing, and it's the same reason I love games like the Sands of Time. Parkour, baby, yeah! But when it doesn't work, which is constantly if you're as shite at using the control scheme as I am, man, you're going to feel it. Bear in mind as well that at least 80% of this game is platforming. And to put it into more perspective, if you don't suck at the platforming, this game will take you around 3 hours judging by the long plays on YouTube. It took me 6. For starters, it is so dark and muddy in this game that it's next to impossible to tell where you're supposed to go next. There is a brightness option in the settings, but it did bugger all for me except give the game an ugly light grey tint, so I chose not to use it. And this lack of visibility is not helped at all by the fact you have very little to no control over the camera, not to mention it's one of those cameras that when the perspective changes, the controls change with it. It also seems to have an aversion to showing you where you need to go next, which is, you know, kind of the point of a platforming camera. Frequently I had to make a leap of faith and hope there was a pole or ledge nearby, simply because the camera couldn't just show me. And even when the camera does want to work and shows you your path forward, the perspective is so awkward that you won't be able to tell if you're straight on to the next jump or slightly off to the side. Back to the bottom you go! Another example of this bad perspective was in a room full of green lasers. It's only a short room and the lasers don't do too much damage, but for the life of me I couldn't tell which I was supposed to jump over and which to crawl under, all because the perspective is so awkward. Now, I will admit the camera does do some interesting things, such as angled shots as you run down a hallway, and it's quite clear this has been done to accentuate the sexy PS2 Halle Berry model as much as possible. But when you choose style over ease of use, you're going to get complaints. And I'm pretty sure 99.9% of players who gave this game a go, so like 7 people, would rather have a boring camera they can control themselves than an awkwardly fixed angled camera that's giving you the best view of Catwoman's boobies. The developers did try to alleviate the issues that come with a fixed camera by adding in an ability which I assume is called Cat's Eye, given how often Catwoman says it.
What's that my cat's eye spies?
It is a pretty nifty ability, giving you a first-person perspective of the world, and can be used to locate anything useful in view, whether that be a path forward or upwards, represented by Midnight's paw prints, collectibles, or even something important to break. But once you stop using Cat's Eye, you're back to that awkwardly placed fixed camera, which, especially if it's at one of those silly angles or slightly off from Catwoman, can leave you feeling very disorientated and confused about where to go, forcing you to use Cat's Eye again just to try and piece both perspectives together. It would be easier just to let me have control over the bloody camera. The platforming itself is really nothing special and can be an absolute pain in the arse at times. I hope you enjoy spinning on poles, clambering up walls and occasionally swinging to grapple points, because that's all you do when you're not fighting off bad guys or smashing Catwoman's face into the brickwork hoping something will be climbable. Like I said, when it does work, the platforming is so enjoyable to do, and you do get that slight hint of a spark at what the game could potentially have had in store for you. And then you mess up a platforming section because you didn't initially realise you were supposed to grapple swing instead of climb up, and given the game hasn't told you how to re-grapple, if you even can, you're forced to start back at the bottom and make your way all the way up to the top again. You know what this game could do with? Better checkpoints. Why, for example, do I not get a checkpoint during the 84 years I spent climbing a building, but I get 2 checkpoints about 30 seconds apart later on in one of the most simple sections of the level? So yeah, I've pretty much summed up the game already. I should really mention the story, but to be honest, there isn't much there, especially if you've seen the film, which the game more or less follows plot-wise. I will summarise it, however, for anyone who does have the slightest bit of interest. So there's the jewellery scene, running away from the cops, backstory into what happened to Patience which made her turn into Catwoman, and then you travel to various areas in pursuit of people who can give you more information. You start off in the alleyways, eventually making your way to a club to track down the dude who flushed Patience down the drain. He tells her to visit the scientist, Slavicki, who works for Hader, as he knows the anti-aging cream is toxic. But you get to the Hader factory and oh no, he's dead! So then you make your way to the Hader mansion, beat up more security guards than I'm sure even a house this size needs, and smack up Laurel, who then sends you after her husband at the theatre. But not before she calls her hit team to take you out. Is she the real villain? Then there's a surprisingly fun level where you're fleeing for your life as a hitwoman and her team try to take you out, having you cross rooftops and flaky scaffolding as you try to escape with your tail intact. You arrive at the theatre, do all the same shit as usual in order to reach George, but turns out he doesn't actually know a thing about the side effects of the new anti-aging cream. Detective Potato arrives and tells you you've been a bad kitty.
Detective Lone.
I'll kill you, bad kid! I'll kill his nut.
And a fight ensues between him and Catwoman. She wins, obviously, and informs him of everything she knows about the anti-aging cream. You then head back to Hader Mansion to find Laurel's off to her husband and framed Catwoman for the murder. Oh no! You then travel to Hader headquarters, fight off a couple dozen bints who all sound just like Catwoman.
Here, kitty kitty. She's over there. Let's have a slumber party. We should sell tickets for this.
And catch up with Lone, who's just been shot by Laurel. He then informs you to
Kick her ass.
and we have a final showdown with Laurel, which ends with her willingly falling to her death.
So, think you can stop chasing after me now?
Skip! And that's Catwoman on the PS2. There are some things I haven't gone into detail about, such as finding Midnight in various areas to gain extra lives, though you can never have more than 9, ha ha. And the point system, of course, which rewards you with diamonds the better you do, which in turn can be used to purchase the most pointless upgrades ever. Seriously, apart from the disarming mechanic, I never used any of these, not purposely at least. I might have used 1 or 2 when I was spamming buttons during combat, but I can assure you it wasn't intentional.
Oh, did I scratch you up?
And to be honest, given I only died 3 times in total if I recall, with 2 of them being completely unfair deaths where the game locked me out of performing any sort of maneuver, I can't be asked to talk any more about this game's mechanics. What can I say? I'm a lazy person. But not as lazy as the people that made this game. I mean, bloody hell, talk about a disaster. The most annoying thing about all of this is that I can actually see the potential this game had. I really can. Sections like the helicopter chase and the hitwoman shooting at you were honestly so entertaining. And it's where the parkour really shone. If the game just had more high-thrill sections like that, and less boring, padded-out sections like this, it might have done better with the critics. I certainly would have enjoyed it more at least. But instead, they gave us the same uninspired, dark brown, muddy layouts, and the same long-winded platforming throughout most of the game's runtime. I'm struggling to think of anyone who would actually enjoy this game too, unless you have an obsession with sexy black women parading around in BDSM gear and hissing like cats. I don't see how this could appeal to you. There's no real challenge unless you count challenge as falling off things continuously due to awful controls and camera placement. Combat is far too easy, with an incredibly generous health bar and more hazards to knock goons into than you can shake a stick at. And in fact, if somebody did walk in on me playing this game, I'd probably liken it to being caught watching porn. Oh my god, I didn't know you were home. It's not what you think, I swear, it's for research purposes. My viewers asked me to play it. No, don't tell Mum, please don't tell Mum. Shout out to supporters, Klaxon, Thomas Hinton, Jeffrey Thomas, Ray Zack, Mr. Zugador, Ross Ward, Samuel DeBoss, Poplio the Destroyer, Merendor, Trevor, Oblivion, Justin Tergerson, James Townsend, Artemis the Falcon, and Haley Thomas. Thank you so much to you guys that continue to donate every single month on Patreon and YouTube. It really means so much to me and keeps me going. If you can't afford to donate, that's perfectly fine too. I love the fact you guys still turn up and watch all the videos and join in on the Discord and all that jazz. And I have to say, making this video today, or at least doing the script, like speaking it, has been incredibly difficult because it's like 30+ degrees in this room and we have no proper insulation. I am sweating like a pig. So yeah, the fact that you guys do watch the videos, keep supporting me, keep leaving likes and comments, it does keep me motivated to keep doing these videos, especially on days like this where it's like I just want to dive in a pool. So yeah, thank you once again guys, really do appreciate it. I hope you're all having an awesome day. I hope it's more pleasant than I'm currently having. And yeah, I'll speak to you guys later, so bye bye!